I mean, because it's my solo project, I'm kind of like a part of every aspect of the project. But I have to say, when it comes to numbers and sales and stuff like that, that's mainly on my label, Seasonal Mist. So
Okay.
of course, I can look into it if I'm curious and if I want to. And I have like, I get like statements every 6 months about what's actually going on in terms of sales and streams and stuff like that that they're collecting. So of course I do have insight into these kind of numbers and that kind of stuff, but it's not, as you probably guess, it's not my main priority. Of course, I'm curious to see like, when you release something, you give basically a part of your soul to the world and you say, here, this is yours now. And it's always really interesting to see what kind of life it takes on and where it takes on the life. So I do check stuff like that, but in general, it's not like a main part of my day. But I will say that the admin side of the project, like doing emails with my booking agent or with my label or figuring stuff out with my different partners, very much a part of my everyday life. So the business side is present every single day, actually, in addition to the creative side. Sometimes more than the creative side, which is something that I have a hard time with, and I kind of sometimes fight that a bit. But it's just a part of it. It's the nature of the beast. When you're alone in something, a pretty big machinery, of course. I mean, the thing that binds us together is me, basically. So of course I have to be there for all the different partners that are involved. So yeah, it basically very much involved in the business side as well. And with marketing, obviously, the promotion is also heavily relying on me because I'm the only person in the project. So it's something that I've been trying to be better at because social media isn't something that's very natural for me. But I've really tried to, through the years, like get better at that and to use it a bit more because I really do love the connection it gives me with my fans. That's a bit more direct, and it makes brings everything down to a like more human level where you can communicate as equals because we are basically. I find it quite challenging to create stuff for social media, but I'm trying to see the good in it and have fun with it too. So yes, very much involved in all different sides of this project. In addition to the creative outlets, so to speak. I think a little bit of both because I think we have to be honest about the fact that unless, well, you're a really established artist that has a tendency to change their colors all the time, like for example Prince or of the likes of Prince. I think you're kind of branded by the genre that kind of embraces you from the get-go, unless you really just say that I'm cutting with this now and moving into something totally different. There are bands that have done this too, which is not what I'm saying with this EP. This is just me wanting to explore a different part of music because music is such an incredibly vast art form that it seems kind of weird to want to stay in the same track for your whole
Mm.
career. So I'm very open-minded as a listener myself of music. I like music from all different genres. So it's quite natural for me to want to explore different areas. So I think that, of course, the core audience will always remain in the metal scene because that was a scene that embraced me when I first released my debut album back in 2014. Even though I never really branded or said that my project was a metal project necessarily, but I inevitably use tools in my music that's very much directly connected to metal or like aesthetics and that are connected to metal. So it makes sense, but at the same time, it's a rather melodic or like pop, you can say, project to be at home in this scene. So I didn't really fit in the metal scene either, but it's been very much the scene has embraced me, and I think that for the marketing of this EP, even if it's a Norwegian folk music EP, it's still been very much picked up by the outlets that have been talking about my music before, very much in that kind of atmospheric, alternative, metal, rock kind of crowd. Because I think it's one of those releases that falls a little bit between. I mean, it's kind of stuck between two different places because it's not really pure Norwegian folk music. It's not like a pure folk music release because it still has some elements that's very inevitably like me in it. Like it's still quite somber. It has a bit of that darkness to balance out the lights. It has quite a bit of atmospheric elements in certain pieces that might be a little bit too out there for certain folk music audiences. But at the same time, of course, it being very atmospheric and very stripped down, some pieces only have voice as an element, is a bit too much for the metal crowd again. So I think we've just with the people working at Season Mist, my press team, my great press team there, have been basically trying to spread this EP in the outlets that we usually do, but also trying to reach a little bit beyond and
Hmm.
see what is basically what is possible, because you can't get away from again this label that you have on you already, because people think that Sylvain is a metal band just because of the company you keep basically and the label that I have and everything like this. But I'm not sure it's been a problem actually. I think it is opening new doors, this EP. For example, this tour that I'm going on later this year in October with the Faroese artist Eivør, which is really fantastic, and she's very like genre bending as well. Something that I'm not quite sure would have happened if I didn't have this EP in the works, and it will also play to a crowd that's quite different from my crowd. I'm also looking into actually doing stuff related more to the Norwegian folk music side, and like looking into opportunities to play places where that's a bit more the genre than metal. So it's like a balance to be found, because I don't want to alienate my fans, of course. This was not my intention, but I've always been very kind of non-compromised when it comes to my artistic vision and trying to follow my instincts and my heart and soul's needs in this aspect. So even though I was doing this, of course, we still wanted to be in touch with the core base of fans and the core base of media for this record, and market it as what it is, basically a metal or alternative atmospheric whatever artist exploring new horizons. I think music is such a vital part of who I am as a person, that I need that expression form in my life in general to feel like myself and to feel good and healthy. It's one of those things where you can have a weird relationship with it, where sometimes it brings you a lot of grief, because if you don't feel inspired, it can get like tough as an artist. You can start to question yourself, question your worth, all these kind of things that are just like negative thoughts seeping in. But I would say the bottom line, at its core, it's basically like my safe haven, and it's been like the one love through my life that has always been there and has been like something that centers me. So definitely music has helped me so much to stay true to myself. That also allowed me to explore myself, and I get to learn about myself actually by writing music and to try to articulate my emotions and thoughts. Even though you usually make music about stuff that you find hard to talk about or find hard to put into words, and then you are in the situation where you have to write lyrics and do exactly that, or you have to do interviews when you talk about stuff and you have to articulate things. So it's a really funny relationship there. But anyways, my point is just that it's a vital part of who I am, and I'm not. It's maybe not a good thing, but just honestly, I'm not quite sure who I am without that. Like, who am I without, if you take away writing music, if you take away performing music, if you take away music being like one of the main things in my life, basically, I'm not quite sure I would know 100% who I am anymore, because it's really been since I was a kid, basically. It's been such a big part of my life because my parents were into it as well. So it was like something that brought our family together, that we have in common. That's always been like a kind of, yeah, common ground for the three of us, me and my two parents. And basically, it's like, um, I need that in my life to function normally, or semi-normally at least.
Right.
So Eg Er Framand was a very grounding EP, in a sense that it showed up at a time in my life when I was super overwhelmed, and I was like really searching for light and searching for like finding my way back to myself and finding my way back to art and music, because it was a time after I released Nova where I was so incredibly busy with touring and a lot of other things that it just took me away from the creative side. So I didn't have that expression outlets that I would usually have, and it made me feel really disconnected and weird. And it just, I mean, I was super grateful for everything that was happening touring wise and with Nova, because it was an amazing experience. When you get back home and you're all alone sitting in your living room, you're like, something feels off. Like, so that's basically where I was at. And this EP, like, I had the idea to record Ega Fram on the title track as like a standalone thing after talking with my label, Season the Mist, about that, and we were talking about maybe doing it as a standalone thing. If I could find a way to do it that I felt was worthy, because this piece is so special to me. And when I started to contact churches, and I got in contact with Kampen Church here in Oslo, and they were on board with me coming to record there, it escalated into a full EP, because I'd been kind of diving into this universe a bit more around April last year, and I started recording the EP in May last year. That whole process was a very grounding and kind of healing, liberating process that definitely allows me to balance myself as well. And you know, with this kind of topics like that are on Eg Er Framand, which translates into something like I'm a stranger, which talks about feeling like a stranger in this world and disconnected from this existence. It makes you think a lot, and it brings out a lot of those kind of spiritual questions. And I mean, the whole EP is basically very much a spiritual quest. And that also links in with, you know, the stuff that I'm doing with yoga and this kind of journey of self-realization and self, like making you think and realize things. And at the same time, hopefully by doing so, maybe grounding yourself in your the pillars, the main pillars of you and who you are, and like finding your core again. So yeah, definitely a very balancing process, and music is kind of, I feel like this point is pretty inseparable from who I am, or separable from me, I guess. And maybe that'll change in the future, but as it is now, it's hard to imagine a life without that outlet in it. Well, what I should uh, right away say is, for me, spirituality and religion are not the same thing at all. Religion is um, organized religion, I should say. Uh, for me, sometimes feels like the least spiritual thing you could believe in, just because it's very often based around the fear of doing something wrong, or like control over other individuals, at least in the way that I've seen it myself. Uh, Me personally, I have had no problems at all with any belief systems. Like, people have the right and should believe in what is right for them. My
Hmm.
problem is when you start to mix in religion into like political structures or societal structures where they don't belong. This is a private matter that can be a guiding light in your life, and it should not be used to create an us and them, or like, you know, a hierarchy of values of different kinds of people based on what they believe in. So, first and foremost, that's the thing. Religion and spirituality are not the same for me at all. When I say spirituality, it's something really, it is a belief system as well, of course, but it's not linked to a god, so to speak. It's not linked to that kind of organized religion structure. It's something that's much more, um, it's something that's personal. It's something that I find hard to speak about, which is why I make music about it, actually. Has tried to figure out, and like through those 10 years that I've been releasing records, I've been learned a lot about what I actually think about this subject, and where I'm at in this kind of sphere, because I've had to talk about it, I have to articulate it, I had to kind of explain it to others, even if it can be very tricky and people think you're either one, crazy, or two, pretentious, or both, which is not good.
Mhm.
Um, but I chose to record it in Kampen Church here in Oslo, because the three traditional Norwegian folk music pieces that are on this EP are all religious in nature. I wrote the lyrics to take out the Christianity aspects, and that was mainly because of, one, I don't believe in this myself. And because of that, too, I don't want to be disrespectful to people that do actually believe in it. Because, as I said, I don't have an issue with any of the religions out there. I have an issue when it becomes like something that you're pushing onto others or using to separate people. That I don't like. So I wanted to rewrite the lyrics to keep it in a more spiritual sphere. Like, instead of using words like God or Jesus, I use the word light, because it aligns much more with my spiritual belief system of this, let's call it the place beyond, that is, let's, or the realm of light, or whatever you want to call it, which is where we're all from. This is where we all originate from, and that's where our soul is from, and that's where we come from when we get born into this world, and that's where we go back to when we die here on this planet. So that aligned much more with what I wanted to say with the record. And like with the title track, Eg Er Framand, I was so floored by this piece when I first heard it, because I felt like the lyrics were speaking about exactly the same thing that I've been trying to express with Sylvain for the last 10 years, but just again in a Christian religious context. So if you take out those words and that kind of some of those ideas, it's basically the same thing, and we're trying to explain the same kind of longing for another place that has this holds this promise of um, being free, I guess,
Mhm.
which we are not when we're here, so to speak. So I wanted to record it in a church because I felt that it was a worthy place for these pieces to exist, because it does have a religious connection, and I'm not trying to hide that at all. I always talk about this and say that that's where it comes from. So it has that sacred feeling, but a sacred feeling doesn't need to be necessarily Christian. It can also be spiritual. But
Mhm.
I can't deny that the I love churches. I've always been very fascinated with churches and cathedrals my whole life, and I do think that there's some certain energy in these rooms, and not to mention the actual sound, the reverb in these rooms, that is something out of the ordinary. And for me, this song, Eg Er Framand, was extremely out of the ordinary, and I wanted it to live on. If it was going to be eternalized by recording it, it had to be done in a way that was worthy. It had to be done in a way that wasn't just going in the studio and recording it. That didn't feel right to me. So I was kind of in search of how to do this in a way that would work, or else I'm not going to do it at all, because I like the idea of this song just being something that I tap into sometimes live when the energy is right. But if it's going to be something that's here forever, it has to be done right. So I thought about churches, and I have a connection with this church because I used to do concerts there when like Christmas concerts when I was going to high school, like music version of high school here in Norway. And once a year we did Christmas concerts, and once a year we did like summer concerts. And the Christmas concerts were very often happening in churches. So we did like choir and like all this kind of stuff. And this was one of the churches where we sang. And I had the memory of this church being nice, especially because it is like a stone church, but the roof has wooden constructions. So it means that the reverb in this room is a bit warmer, a bit different than the typical stone, very beautiful, but still a bit colder reverb that you can get in a lot of cathedrals and churches. So I wanted to use this room because I also knew that I wanted this EP to be quite organic, and I didn't want to like mess with it too much in post production. Of course, we did stuff in post production, but I wanted the main accompaniment of this, or the main color, so to speak, of this record to be a natural reverb. And I figured that the best place to do that would be a room like a church. It has the sacred feeling that I was after, that kind of worthiness, and it also has that natural reverb that can make it a bit more organic, because we don't have to process it as much, and it aligns with this idea of keeping things well, real, I guess, because we I didn't record any of the music with click track. I didn't do a million takes of every vocal take or organ take or guitar stuff. I tried to kind of keep some imperfections timing wise or pitch wise or whatever, because I felt like it made it extremely human and extremely personal. So that's why I chose to record in Camp in Church, because I think it has a sentimental value to me. It has that sacred kind of worthy aspect, thinking about the pieces and what they mean to me and what they just meant in general when they were created. And also, it had this amazing natural reverb that just gave a really distinct and beautiful character to the recordings, so we didn't have to touch them too much in post production. Thank you, first and foremost. That's really nice. The cover art was shot by analog photographer Helena Aguiar Mayans, which is a person that I've come to know through the years, and I come to love her art so much. She only does analog photography, and her all of her work has this like really ethereal, special, kind of like from another time feel, which I love. And I knew that that would work super well with the music on this EP for me. I was looking to actually use inspiration, or draw inspiration from an illustrator that I've loved for big parts of my life, called John Bauer, Swedish illustrator. And I've been wanting to do a photo shoot that kind of pays homage to him or inspired by him for a long time. I've already talked to several photographers about it, and a lot of people like the idea, but it just kind of never came to be. And then this EP came along, and I was like, well, I am going to do this art collaboration with Helena this summer. And I told her about the idea because this EP is connected to Norwegian folk music. And somehow it seems like when you're in the folk music domain, you have kind of two paths to take. The one path is to go in the kind of more Viking, pagan, that kind of way, which is completely not my style at all. It's something that I don't feel at home in, which is funny because, like, I guess somehow I have some things in common with the pagan side because I'm very connected to nature and all that. But still, it's never been a part of the Sylvain universe, and it's not really a part of my everyday life. Or you can go in the path of a more like fairy tale kind of vibe, which is very much in line with my personality and very much in line with the things that I feel is close to my heart. So of course I wanted to go that way for the visuals of this EP. So I told Helena about the idea, and she loved it. And we were actually shooting at this abandoned monastery. So again, you have this religious connection, which just felt like it was meant to be. Like, because Helena was saying, I have this location because she specializes in abandoned locations. That's her thing. She does only more or less that as well. So I won't disclose where it is, but it's basically in Portugal, and it's an abandoned monastery. And she said that it's like one of the most beautiful places I've seen in my life. We have to do something here. And then it just became very apparent that with the fact that it's a monastery, and then with the idea I have with the John Bauer inspiration, it was just like, okay, this has to be for the cover of this EP. It's just like the stars are aligning. We're not going to fight it. It just seems like it's in the cards. And Helena has a very good friend called Viveka Goyanis, and she is a fashion designer, and they've collaborated in the past. And we wanted to get Viveka involved with curating an outfit for the cover, actually, because we wanted to draw inspiration from John Bauer. Still, this like his little princess called Tuvstar, which is like it has like I think the tale is called the princess and the little princess and the trolls or something like that. Anyway, she has like a long white gown and she's wearing a crown in several of these illustrations that he made for this specific story. So that was the main inspiration, was Tuvstad and John Bauer. And then in addition, we wanted to have this kind of grand, like maybe Lord of the Rings-ish kind of vibe with this like just like long gown and like kind of a coat that had like over exaggerated features, like really big sleeves and everything, because it was the place itself was so incredibly majestic that we wanted to kind of tap into that, and still also drawing inspiration from like symbolism and all this kind of stuff that's very close to Helena and my heart when it comes to visual art. So it was like this interesting mixture of stuff, and our three different brains like trying to put this together. And what you see on the cover is basically what we came up with, and I'm super excited and happy with how it turned out, because I think the dress and the gown is exactly what we were looking for. Helena made the crown as well that I was wearing in this shoot, and the location was just perfect in every way possible. So again, the stars just seemed to kind of align, and it was just meant to be, and I couldn't be more happy with the visual representation of this record, basically. Thank you so much. That's so nice. Again, uh, it's it's funny because it's like I always talk about like, or we talk about, everyone talks about the Eg Er Framand is like a very different direction than what I usually do in Sylvain. But actually, I think my vocal style is quite influenced by folk music. I have quite a bit of because like I grew up like in my teenagers loving projects like Cocteau Twins or Dead Can Dance, that has that kind of like, let's call it world music or whatever kind of folk music style in it. In addition to having the Norwegian folk music that has been there my whole life because I grew up here, and it's just something that is quite present in society. Like most people living here has dealt with folk music at some points, if it's hearing it like on a TV or if it's like watching it in an ad or something, like it's around us basically. Um, and it's funny because Hildegard von Bingen is one of those artists that definitely is timeless and creates magical pieces with her voice. And I was first introduced to her when I was at school, actually, at that music high school that I mentioned. Like, I think it was the first, no, I don't think it was the first year of that music high school, because we did music history, which started from the very beginning and then run up until modern times. And that was one of the artists or people that we encountered and studied. And I still have some of her stuff on my iPod Classic because I'm a grandma. Has an iPod Classic still. So yes, absolutely. I really do like her work, and I actually have had some people mention her before like comparing, or at least saying that my voice could remind them of something like that, which is a really really nice compliment, and it's really really cool because definitely is a someone that I think is inspiring, and music that I have listened to through the years. So yes, I do know, and well, it's very cool to hear that you also know. That's a very good question, actually. I do actually have a few younger musicians that I'm kind of like not mentoring, but I try to help because I always said like I did receive some help along the way as well. Like no man is an island, right? We're stronger when we're together, and if you can pay it forward, you really should. So what I usually have said to people that have come to me for advice, which is a bit weird for me even because I don't consider myself a person you can come to for advice necessarily, but we're all on our different parts of our path, and of course, I'm further along than some are, and in that case, maybe you can help and give advice. What I would say is, I think the most important part when it comes to working with music is to stay true to yourself and forget about the outside world when you're creating your art. Because I think it's a dangerous slope to go down if you start to consider what's going to work, what will be a commercial success, what will people like. For me, I stay away from it's. I mean, for me personally, at least, it's worked so far to keep the creation process really introverted and not mix in other people's feelings or emotions, because inevitably what you're trying to convey is your personal emotions, and it can make you a bit confused if you start to have the outside noise start to penetrate through into that sphere. For me, the creation of art is inevitably super introvert and super personal, and should be actually. Then when you're done with it and you release it, it becomes an extroverted thing where you give it to other people and you perform it for other people. And that whole like performing aspect is definitely not for you. It's for technically, I mean, should be for the audience. So my advice would be to really stay focused and stay strong in your creation. Don't veer off the path to please others. Stay true to yourself, and don't settle. Also, like, good is not good enough. Like, you have to keep pushing yourself a bit, and even if it's hard and you'll have growing pains and it'll be uncomfortable sometimes, I think it's better to not settle, because then you can look back at stuff and stay proud of it for what it was at the time, but at least stay proud of it. Second of all, I would say what you need to do if you want to really do something in music is you have to work your ass off. That's just how it is. Like, you have to sacrifice a lot of normal stuff in life if you want to do this for a living. If you don't want to do it for a living, then that's a whole other ballpark. But if you really want to succeed in this and like make it your craft, and so you can be able to spend your life doing it, working super hard, being relentless, being smart, learning about the business side too, even if that's not the most exciting part. Uh, getting contacts and again, paying it forward when you can, like in whatever way, if you can help
Mhm.
out. All of those things are good. Yeah, I guess that goes with hand in hand with third advice is being nice. Being a decent person is never wrong in any part of society. And in music, sometimes there's assholes to be encountered. So don't be one of those people, because the music business is very small and there's no need for that. It's already hard enough. So stay true to yourself, work really hard, and be nice, I think would be the advice I would say. So yeah, as you said, we have like some shows spread out, shows and events spread out throughout the spring and into summer, and then of course this big tour with Ivor in October. And throughout the year, I've already started working on the next full length record, which is something that I hope to finish this year as well. I'm also doing a folk music residency in a few weeks, or less than a few weeks actually now. I'm going to keep diving into this tradition because it's something that really touched me when I was working with it for Eg Er Framand, and I realized already then that I have so many things that I want to say on the subject, and I'm not going to be able to include everything in this EP. So I don't know where that's going to lead me or what that will turn into, but I'm going to do this anyways. And otherwise, I'm very much into at the moment reworking my back catalog, so to speak, to try to make it work with the Ega Framand material and try to make it work on stage alone. Trying to figure out the best way to do that, and kind of updating the sounds a little bit and trying to figure out if everything's aligning with who I am now, and if not, I'm changing some stuff. It's a creative period. It's a busy period, but there's a lot of exciting things coming. There's also a very special project that's in the works for the end of this year that I can't really talk more about right now. But it's basically something that, if it comes to be the way that I've planned, it will be something really special as well, connected to Eg Er Framand. And yeah, that's uh, that's basically it for now, at least. Don't have any plans right now, but we're trying to work on that because all of my band guys too are like, "God, we really miss being in the US." So definitely looking to come back to North America and not too long. I would love to come back even as a solo artist. Maybe that'll happen. Who knows? But right now we've been focused more on, or I've been focused more on just like releasing this EP and like getting that out into the world, and then we'll see where the wind takes me. Hopefully back to North America. You can find it through my official website, of course. You can go to any of my social media, and there will be links there to take you to stream it, to order it, to listen to it. Or you can go to Season of Mist, my label's website. They have an international shop, they have a North American shop. There you can buy the vinyl and CD version and digital versions, as well as merchandise. And you can also find it on my Bandcamp as well. And again, you can stream it, listen to it there, or you can buy physical copies, you can buy t shirts, all that kind of stuff. So anywhere on my social media, my label Season the Mist, or my Bandcamp, you'll find it.